Welcome to Religious Sentiments. I'm your host, Geovanny. In this episode, Maddie and I are going to embrace our geeky side as we discuss Disney's live-action Star Wars series, The Mandalorian, from a Christian perspective. We believe that the series is highly entertaining and has some substantial Christian messages within it. Now, we will warn you that if you haven't watched the series yet, this episode will have some spoilers. So, with that being said, what are you waiting for? Let's jump right into it. So welcome to our second full-length episode of Religious Sentiments. I'm your host, Geovanny, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Maddie. We're going to be talking about the Star Wars series, The Mandalorian.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So like Gia said, we are talking about The Mandalorian today, which I personally thought was a pretty interesting season. And I'm super excited for the second season that's going to be released at the end of the month. But for some of our viewers, maybe you should explain what The Mandalorian is.
That's a great idea. So the series follows the adventures of a bounty hunter named Din Djarin. However, the other characters call him the Mandalorian or Mando. And he goes on a mission to capture this person whom he discovers is a child, and later on discovers that this child is Force sensitive, which means that they can use the Force like a Jedi. And this child is the character that everyone knows as Baby Yoda, even though that's not his actual name within the series. He's referred to as the child. And Baby Yoda is a very cute green little ball of cuteness, if you will. And after capturing Baby Yoda and taking him back to the guy who sent him on the mission, the Mandalorian realizes that the person who sent him on the mission has some evil plans. So he ends up rescuing Baby Yoda, and the rest of the series follows their adventures throughout the galaxy. So that's basically season 1 of The Mandalorian in a nutshell.
The first season was excellent, I will have to say. We were kind of late on the bandwagon. We started watching when the 5th episode came out, so we binged episode 1 to 5, and by then we were kind of like, well, what happens next? We had to wait for 6 through 8 to come out week by week. So that was a little bit, it was trying my patience, let's put it that way.
That sounds pretty frustrating. So actually, by the time I watched it, all the episodes were out. I had gotten Disney Plus for my birthday. So my mom and I were actually able to watch all 8 episodes. We didn't watch them like all in one sitting or all in one day, but they were all available for us to watch.
Do you like having Disney Plus?
Yes, I actually really do like it. There's so much movies, so many shows on there. And I've even noticed there's a few things I haven't heard of before. So I'm looking forward to watching them.
Sorry, I think I went a little bit off track there. But I did also notice that there were some Christian values thrown into the first season of The Mandalorian. Did you see those?
So I do see a very pro-life message. The whole pro-life message is probably one of the most prominent Christian themes I see in the series. And this might sound a little weird or out there. Well, it kind of is out there because it's a galaxy far, far away, right? So it sounds a little weird, but I do see the series as sort of an allegory for unplanned pregnancy and parenthood. And let me explain that a little. So the Mandalorian has his whole career cut out for him. He's busy with his own life. And suddenly, out of nowhere, there's this unexpected child placed in his hands, literally and figuratively. And he has the choice in several instances throughout the series to get rid of the child. And I'm not going to spoil those. You'll have to watch it and find those scenes for yourself. And despite all of that, he still chooses to keep the child and to really take it on as a burden and take on that, I would say, parental role for the child. And there are some particular instances in the series where you will see some bonding moments between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, and that parental father figure image really comes out in his character in those scenes.
I definitely have to agree with you on that one. Like you said, the the Mandalorian's career was at its zenith, really, because, spoiler alert, but when he accepted the bounty before he went rogue, per se, he made the most money then, I guess you could say. And it was all put on hold and he sacrificed it all in the end for Baby Yoda. But I did find the pro-life message in it. It was subtle, but it was definitely there.
I also think the series has some moments where it shows a pro adoption message, and the Mandalorian himself was even adopted. So there were some flashbacks where you see what happened to the Mandalorian's parents, and they're presumably killed in some scenes when there's some kind of battle going on and they're in the crosshairs or whatnot. And he is rescued by a Mandalorian. So Din Djarin was not actually from Mandalore. He was adopted into the Mandalorian religion and their group. So I do think that does show a very pro-adoption message that ties into the overall pro-life theme of the series.
I definitely have to agree with what you just said. And also, I'm going to take you a step further too, because while at first Mando was somewhat hesitant and maybe a little bit scared to parent this baby Yoda, in the end, at the end of season 1, you can see there's actually a deep affection there for this child, as he's given everything that he has to him in a way.
I think you did bring up a pretty good point there. So, moving on, I would ask, are there any other Christian themes that you see within the series?
Yeah, I definitely think so. What came to mind first actually was conversion. And as Christians, I mean, we hear about conversions pretty often, I would say. What about you?
I do think conversion was something that was played at in a few scenes. For example, I'm remembering right now an episode where the Mandalorian goes with a group of, I guess I would call them space outlaws, to break someone out of jail. And one of them is actually someone from his past. And this character ends up alluding to some of his past sinful behavior. Apparently, the Mandalorian was a pretty violent guy at one point. And the Mandalorian that we know as viewers from watching the series sounds like a totally different person. So I do think at some point there was some moment where his whole moral ethic changed and he changed as a character. And he does show, I would say, a reluctance to kill unnecessarily. And in that jailbreak episode, he ends up not killing some of the bad guys in that episode. So I do think that action demonstrates that he had a change of character at some point in his life. And I'm hoping that season 2 will kind of delve back into his past and show us more of what went on in his life that got him to change.
I think specifically it reminds me of some of the Catholic saints that we've read about over the years. For example, St. Paul. You know his story, right?
So, for our listeners who are unfamiliar with the story of St. Paul, he was actually named Saul, and he was a Jewish Pharisee who was a very zealous persecutor of the early church. And on one fateful trip to Damascus, he had this mystical encounter with Christ, and it left him blinded. And later on, after some other events happened, he was miraculously healed. And that all ties into his conversion when he took on the name Paul. So he went from Saul to Paul. And St. Paul, as we know him today, was one of the, I would say, maybe quote unquote founding fathers of the early church, in that he really helped build up the Christian community and helped spread the gospel message.
St. Paul is pretty cool. Another one that came to mind when I watched The Mandalorian was St. Augustine, which, fun fact, I recently did a paper about him. But St. Augustine, he was the son of St. Monica. Some of you may have heard of her. So St. Augustine, while he was raised Christian, he went to Carthage during school, so like probably college age, went to Carthage, and he led a pretty bad life there. He was surrounded by bad influences, a lot of temptations, and he just wasn't the man that we know him as today.
So, what got him to go from the sinful college student to the saint we know today?
So I read that he actually was with one of his friends, and I think they might have been in a temple or they were somewhere, and they were watching these two recent converts to Christianity and how they were trying to read the Bible and trying to understand this. And St. Augustine is saying to his friend, like, wait, if they're trying to do this, why shouldn't we? And I think that was the actual turning moment, so to speak, that led to his conversion. However, as Christians, we do attribute his conversion also to the prayers of his mother. Just slightly off topic there for a second, but I think this also shows that we should never underestimate the power of prayer.
I definitely agree. I think it can be pretty easy to give up hope, if you will, when praying for someone and you're not seeing those instantaneous results. But I really think that God rewarded St. Monica's persistence in prayer because she never gave up praying for her son. So I think that does take a level of courage in the face of discouragement to continue and persevere in spite of all the temptations that might happen where you're like, oh, is this even worth it anymore?
Oh, most definitely.
So I am hoping that season 2 of The Mandalorian is actually going to delve more into his past because I'm really curious to see, again, like I said before, what sparked his change of character? What got him from point A to point B? So maybe there's a quote unquote Saint Monica character somewhere in his past that was a catalyst for his change of character.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for season 2 as well. I definitely hope that it goes more in depth into his childhood, what it was like being raised in with the Mandalore, and also more about his conversion, so to speak.
So I think we've had a pretty good discussion so far on The Mandalorian and connecting it to some Christian values. And I think it would definitely be interesting to revisit The Mandalorian as a discussion topic in the future after we've seen season 2.
Yes, definitely. And also, I hope that there's a lot more movies that we can and shows that we can relate Christian values to as well. However, I do think we need to get this show finished up before season 2 comes out. So I think our time is up, and we hope to see you again next time.
Yes, so thank you for listening, and we hope you have a blessed day. Thanks for listening to the show. We'd love if you connected with us on social media. Just search for Religious Sentiments on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Give us a follow and drop us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. You can also check out the show notes for a link to our official website. Our website features our latest episodes, our social media links, information about the co-host, and our contact information. Lastly, if you enjoyed listening to the show, please leave us a 5-star review. God bless!